Thanks for calling in, Amy. You're on the air with myself and Brianna Morella.
Hey, Harrison. Hey, Brianna.
Amy.
Long-time listener. This is my first time calling in. About 4 years ago, during that same weekend of the George Floyd riot, I wasn't even paying attention to all that. It was right when, COVID, they were finally lifting restrictions, and I was like, I want to head to the beach. I invited one of my friends to go with me, and so we went to Myrtle Beach, and we were staying kind of right on that strip. And before we left, my friend Tammy, she's very spiritual, which I am too, but she had a dream that we were in our hotel room and people were trying to come in and hurt us. And I told her, well, let's just pray against that because, I just want to go to the beach and have a good time. And so we get there and everything's fine. And I meet up with my friend Bonnie, who lives in the area, and her daughter. And we were kind of hanging out that weekend with them. Then Sunday comes along and we're just all hanging out at the beach. And all of a sudden, my friend Tammy jumps up, and Bonnie's looking at me, and she's like, "What's your friend doing?" Because she was over there talking to these two guys, and she was just over there for a few minutes, and we're like, I have no idea. I have no idea why she's talking to these guys. Well, she comes back, and she's like, "Oh my God!" She's like, "These guys just told me there's going to be riots, and it's going to be from like the Ferrisville down, and don't go out of your room from like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And she seemed really freaked out by it. And some of the people around us were listening, and we were talking to them. Well, then shortly after, I get a text from the hotel, because I was the one that booked it, that said the mayor has issued a curfew for Myrtle Beach from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So we knew it was real. So so I'm kind of like, I found out later, but the reason she told me that she got up to talk to these guys was she just all of a sudden heard the Lord speaking to her, and he said, "Go talk to them." And she kind of hesitated at first, and then he's like, "Go." And so he goes up and starts talking to them, and it was like he just gave her the words to say. And it's like she just knew. They were dressed normally, like beach clothes and everything, but these guys were Antifa. And they admitted that they were being paid to be there. And they were freaked out. Like when she first came up, they're like, "What made you come over and talk to us?" And she's like, "God did." And they're just kind of looking at her, and so she starts asking them questions like, and they admitted that they were being paid to be there. And they said, "You seem like a cool girl. Just don't go out of your hotel from this time to this time." So anyways, after that, everybody was talking about it around us. We told some of the lifeguards. Well, then we headed back to the room for a minute, and I called my pastor because they were having church that day, and I was like, "Can you please have the church pray for us? I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but apparently with all these riots happening with George Floyd this weekend, apparently it's going to happen here too." And so my pastor's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I get back outside, and my friend Bonnie at this point was about to leave with her daughter, and Tammy's over there talking to this guy at the lifeguard chair, and he wasn't a lifeguard. He was a black guy, and he had a mask on. And she was, and Bonnie's like, "Yeah, I don't know," but she just went over and started talking to him. And I thought, well, I need to bring all this stuff back to the room. So I went over to tell Tammy, like, "Hey, can you watch the rest of the stuff while I'm bringing it back?" And the guy looks at me and he goes, "Do you believe all this?" And I had no idea what they were talking about, and I said, "Believe what?" And Tammy starts in again, and she just told him, "All these people are here just having a great time with their families. I know racism exists and everything." And she's like, "But," she goes, "I love you, and I don't even know you." And his girlfriend comes down, and it was a white girl, and we're just talking, both of them, and we're both saying the same thing, like, "Look, a lot of the stuff
it sounds like Tammy's little social butterfly. So so all these things were pre-planned. They were all organized. And again, this is
right.
This is the big difference between what we're seeing on the college campuses, today, and what we saw in 2020. I mean, these riots, they were organized, they were orchestrated. Obviously, people in the government knew they were happening. The people in the media knew where to go, what to look at, what to publish, and what not to publish. Can you talk a little bit about the difference just between 2020 and what we see today, Brianna, and what that might signify?
Yeah, we're hearing a lot about all of this going down right now because, well, we're in an election year. I think
Mm.
that's also why they're going after all these people. There's a lot of George Soros money floating around these days, and I think the
Right.
New York Post has done a great job at showing that. Now, I don't care what side you fall on this Israel Gaza issue right now. Personally, for me, you have a right to protest as long as it's peaceful. But there's agitators being added to it. And it looks like those agitators are Soros funded. The New York Post has been doing some digging and found out that these people, are.
Mhm.
I think they're trying to create more division in the country as we get closer to November. We see it. We saw it play out during the BLM riots. We're seeing it play out again. I just tell everyone you got to be careful. You just can't fall for the emotional issues that are kind of wrapped up into all of this, because I think that's what they always tie people into. I always just tell people to take a step back, think of the reverse, and then kind of decide for yourself where you fall in the issues. But again, I mean, you were talking about it earlier before I jumped on with you. This Israel issue right now with protesters, police are yanking all these protesters off the property. I don't have an issue with them being able to, speak freely. The violence is another issue. If they're blocking students from being able to get across the campus, that I have an issue with. But they're all paid to be there. A lot of them are
Right.
paid to be. Not all of them. A lot of them are paid to be there.
Right, and the organizers are paid and orchestrated, and of course they, again, I mean, what stands out to me is the leaked video is like a hot mic moment during 2020 where you had this protester going up to an NBC reporter and going, "Yeah, I'm in communication with your producer, and I know this guy, and I'm from Chicago, and I was sent here to help lead this march." I mean, if Black Lives Matter was given the January 6th treatment, if they got into the finances and saw who was funding it and who was promoting it and arrested those people and had RICO charges against those people, I mean, that was a real insurrection they were trying to foster.
You know, it's funny. I don't think people realize it, but FISA has actually been used against BLM protesters.
Right.
And that was like a big thing that nobody really spoke about. I don't understand why, but it was a big issue for everyone. We could have actually used that to our advantage.
Right.
But if you recall, the college protests that are going on right now have amplified and grown significantly. And so I was wondering, why are we all of a sudden paying attention to this? Like, the government last week just voted to extend FISA. We just voted over the weekend for foreign aid, billions of dollars of foreign aid being thrown around everywhere. But now all of a sudden they're telling you, okay, look at this one issue. I think a lot of it's a distraction intentionally, so you don't see them kind of chipping away at your rights. I mean,
Right.
it's exactly what they're doing, and they don't want you to pay attention to it.
And that's what they've effectively done is you have Republicans now just completely betraying any morals about free speech, going completely along with the suppression taking place. And the FBI spying on the Black Lives Matter protest, that was a big deal to the left. And again, it was one of these times where it was like, okay, so now you get how this is bad. Don't